Hello and welcome to Foreign Dispatches, the program that takes you around the world in 25 minutes. I'm Teniola Shobowale. On the program this week, countries deliver aid to Tonga after underwater volcanic eruption, plus Afghans battle harsh winter amid humanitarian crisis. We begin in Tonga, where a volcanic eruption triggered a tsunami felt as far as New Zealand, Peru and Japan. The government says the disaster was unprecedented. Scientists also believe the massive underwater volcanic eruption could deliver long-lasting damage to coral reefs, erode coastlines and disrupt fisheries.
Tonga's small outer island suffered extensive damage from the massive volcanic eruption and tsunami, with an entire village destroyed and many buildings missing, raising fears of more deaths and injuries. Members of the Tongan diaspora fear never seeing their loved ones on the Pacific island again.
The worst fear is always that you're not going to see the people that you love again. That's the worst fear. The worst fear is the suffering of other people. That's hard to cope with, probably even more than your own suffering. Yeah, I would definitely say that. Our ability to empathise with each other is quite massive. When somebody else loses a parent, we all feel it. And the same if I was to have any suffering, I'm aware that other islanders, other Pacific people, other Tongans all feel exactly my feeling. That's how close we are.
Volunteers have been sweeping the runway of the main airport to allow planes bringing much-needed drinking water and supplies to land. Communications with the island chain have been disrupted after the single underwater cable connecting Tonga to the rest of the world was severed in the eruption.
This is a very challenging time. Communications are deeply affected by the events of the volcanic eruption. It has been felt in other parts of the region. We know ourselves. Here in Australia we have seen the effects on our own coastline, but in Fiji in particular as well. We expect if it is the case that there is damage to the submarine cable, then that is obviously a significant challenge for repair work. We'll work closely with all our partners to provide whatever assistance we can, including the commercial providers of the submarine cable, and also to look at what other options may be available to assist in short-term communication support. But there is no doubting the challenge that such an extraordinary volcanic eruption presents in terms of its impact, both, as you say, on communications, but also domestically in a country like Tonga.
The eruption was felt as far away as the US. In Peru, 2 people drowned in abnormally high waves while beaches near the capital Lima were closed off following an oil spill. The destruction from Tonga's massive underwater volcanic eruption is still being assessed, but scientists now warn that the damage could be long-lasting. The volcano has been releasing sulfur dioxide and nitrogen oxide, 2 gases that create acid rain.
As the plume rose beyond 20 kilometers, it reached well into the stratosphere. So a lot of that ash and gas will remain within the stratosphere for quite a number of weeks and possibly months, and kind of circulate across the globe. The more immediate impact on Tonga especially was the ash fall directly from the cloud, which blanketed most of the Tongan landscape in a few centimeters of ash from what has been seen of satellite images. And that basically had an impact on basically water, drinking water sources, on vegetation, grazing for animals, etc., because the volcanic ash is toxic.
And it may not just be Tonga. Much of the rain could land on Fiji. Underwater, fish are at risk. Tonga's livelihoods depend on the ocean, but ash from the eruption could be harmful to marine life.
Certainly fisheries are likely to have been impacted by, for instance, the murkiness of the water. So the eruption would have produced quite a lot of suspended particle in the ocean water. So that might impact fishing grounds. Ashfall could also have such an impact and could potentially cause changes in ocean surface acidification, for instance, which might have a short-term impact on coral reefs. The murkiness of the water would have an impact on corals, etc. So yes, it will be some times before kind of sea currents make the suspended particle move away or let them settle, etc. So there will have been some severe impact on those as well.
Even before the eruption, Tonga's reefs were threatened by disease outbreaks and the effects of climate change, including coral bleaching and increasingly strong cyclones.
Away from Tonga, a major winter storm blanketed large parts of North America in snow this week as it sliced off the U.S. East Coast into Canada, disrupting travel and cutting power to thousands of homes. For some Canadians, though, they took advantage of the extreme weather to have some fun.
An extreme weather warning was in effect across the east coast of the U.S. and into Canada on Monday, with more than 4,000 flights grounded and nearly 100,000 homes and businesses without power between Maine and Georgia. In Hidden Valley, Pennsylvania, some residents reported that they were under more than a foot of snow. Atlanta saw its first snow in 4 years, according to the National Weather Service, and some regions in North Carolina had record snowfalls. North of the border, traffic was snarled in Toronto, Canada, while pedestrians helped push cars up main city roads. The snowstorm brought visibility to near zero and left motorists stranded on local highways for hours. Buses were also at a standstill and subways shuttered. Authorities in both Canada and the U.S. urged residents to stay off the roads. Despite the disruptions and a spike in natural gas prices, the weather was not bad news to all Canadians. One family in Winnipeg celebrated the cold weather by playing hockey on an ice rink they created on their street.
I've had a couple of helpers, as you can see. We started off with 2 houses. We've expanded to 3 now. We make it a little difficult for the mail carrier, I know that. They got to walk around the rink, but it's well used. We've had it before COVID, and we feel like it's been important through COVID as well as hopefully post-COVID as a mental health wellness is what we're trying to encourage here for our kids to be outside as much as possible instead of in front of the screens.
Temperatures have been so cold that parts of Lake Ontario near Toronto froze over the weekend. The extreme weather hit just as Ontario schools were set to reopen for in-person classes after the winter break was extended because of the highly contagious Omicron coronavirus variant.
Afghans are facing the winter season amid one of the world's most rapidly growing humanitarian crises. Half of the population face acute hunger, over 9 million people are displaced, and the economy is in free fall. Months after fleeing to Afghanistan's capital, Kabul, aid is the only lifeline for many displaced families trying to survive a winter of soaring unemployment and food costs.
Months after fleeing to Afghanistan's capital, Kabul, aid is the only lifeline for many displaced families trying to survive a winter of soaring unemployment and food costs. Kardos fled his hometown with about 10 other families to find safety and survival in the Afghan capital. He shares one room with his wife and children, where they also cook. The roof is leaking, and they can barely find enough wood to keep the fire going to cook tea and keep themselves warm.
We have not had a moment of joy since we came here. We burn rubbish and plastics on the stove. My children collect the rubbish. Sometimes we burn herbs from the roadside. I try to make a living as a porter, but it's not enough.
The situation is similar for most of the families living in this neighborhood in Kabul's Karaga district. Some 700,000 people in Afghanistan have been forced out of their homes over the past year by conflict. While the fighting may be over in most regions, internally displaced people are facing a potentially more devastating crisis caused by the economic collapse that has followed. This is our life. In these tents, we do not have clothes or a place to stay. We have nothing. The sky is our roof and the ground is our carpet. This is our situation this winter. The United Nations has warned that 23 million Afghans, 55% of the population, are now facing extreme levels of hunger, with nearly 9 million of them at risk of famine and the humanitarian crisis escalating daily.
Freezing temperatures and frozen assets are a lethal combination for the people of Afghanistan. Rules and conditions that prevent money from being used to save lives and the economy must be suspended in this emergency situation. International funding should be allowed to pay the salaries of public sector workers and to help Afghan institutions deliver healthcare, education, and other vital services. Without creative, flexible, and constructive engagement by the international community, Afghanistan's economic situation will only worsen. Despair and extremism will grow. We need to act now to prevent economic and social collapse and find ways to prevent further suffering for millions of Afghans.
The United Nations and non-governmental organizations have launched a joint response aiming to deliver vital humanitarian relief to 22 million people in Afghanistan and support 5.7 million displaced Afghans and local communities in 5 neighboring countries. Conflict has subsided, but violence, fear and deprivation continue to drive Afghans to seek safety and asylum across borders, particularly in Iran and Pakistan.
Meanwhile, over 5 months since the Taliban takeover in Afghanistan, public universities continue to face uncertainty as their doors remain shut. The acting higher education minister says more than 140 private universities are open across the country. But to resume public schools, the country needs international assistance, amendments to the educational structure, and what the Taliban calls an Islamic sphere.
After the Taliban takeover on August the 15th last year, Afghanistan's education system has been struggling. The Taliban-formed government has allowed private universities to resume, but public universities are still shut. Students are criticizing the Taliban policies regarding the education system.
When we asked them why they have closed the universities, they came up with a number of reasons. And one of them is that we are facing economic problems and there is no foreign aid.
We want a very good system for education, because without education we cannot improve. Without education, without studying, without master degree, without bachelor, we cannot go forward.
For instance, we have Iran and Pakistan as our Islamic neighbors and Qatar as an Islamic country. Why haven't they segregated the educational system or followed any changes the Taliban want to impose?
In addition to students, university lecturers and professors are also questioning whether the Taliban have any concrete plan to reopen universities or not.
Members of the academic sphere are in an information vacuum. They don't understand what the core problem is. They haven't been asked and have no idea about the main reason the universities are not open.
For these cultural reasons, they will ask the West that it needs capital. Money, but we will give them education, any kind of education if you want, but separate, not with boys in one class.
In the latest development, the Taliban caretaker government has announced public universities will soon reopen, but have not given an exact date. Officials have also emphasized that the segregation of male and female students, providing an Islamic sphere, and financial issues are the main reasons for the pause in studies for all state-run universities. Despite the Taliban's promise to open universities, many professors and students, particularly the girls and women, doubt it will happen anytime soon. The international community, reluctant to formally recognize a Taliban-run administration, is worried that the group could impose harsh measures similar to its previous rule 20 years ago. At the time, women were banned from education, work, and even public life.
When Foreign Dispatches returns in just a moment, Omicron cases surge amongst children in the United States. Please stay with us. Thanks for staying with us on the program. Doctors and nurses at the Children's Hospital of Georgia in the United States have noticed a huge spike in the number of Omicron cases among children as the variant rages across the country. While children show milder symptoms, the sudden jump in cases among the young has overwhelmed hospitals and clinics.
Doctors and nurses at this children's hospital in Georgia have noticed a huge spike in Omicron cases as the COVID-19 variant rages across the United States.
So this Omicron wave has really been, we have matched our worst Delta wave with hospitalizations, and then even more than that are clinic visits for what might be considered mild cases, but it's overwhelming clinics and emergency departments with just the number of kids coming in with fevers and real sore throats, and it's just a large volume of visits. Fortunately, it's been milder, and we've not seen those same number of children requiring hospitalization. But because of the numbers, we are above our previous records with Delta of kids needing hospitalization for treatment.
Children below the age of 5 who are not eligible to get the vaccine for COVID-19 remain at higher risk of catching the virus as a result.
It's been very busy because our census was down a little bit coming up to the holidays, and after the holidays it has been really, census has been very high. We've had a lot of children coming in with the Omicron, with COVID, so it's been intense.
Hannah Mills, the mother of 3-month-old Baker, says her son's symptoms are mild.
One of our biggest fears when we were pregnant with him was knowing how bad COVID was him getting COVID because of all the unknowns about it and not knowing what to expect and hearing all the stories on how bad people with COVID is and how people are dying. And
last week, the United States broke a global record for the number of new coronavirus infections in a day, hitting 1.35 million cases on January 10th. Meanwhile, with the Omicron variant causing a steep surge in coronavirus cases, some parents are deciding to withdraw their children from schools.
It's just sending kids to a chickenpox party at this point. And even though, even from the CDC saying everyone's going to get it, do we all have to get it right now at this point in time and to tax our healthcare system even more? So that's basically our stance. So we are keeping them home for as much as the district allows until we end up either doing independent learning or homeschooling or, whatever options we'd be able to do.
The country is averaging 893 new hospital admissions each day for children 17 years and under, a record high since the CDC started to track the number from August 2020. The highest hospitalization rates among all children are in those ages newborn to 4 years, who are not yet eligible for vaccination. Health experts have urged everyone ages 5 years and older to get a COVID-19 vaccine to help protect against COVID-19. At least 65.5 million eligible Americans remain unvaccinated.
And finally on the program, in the wake of increasing COVID-19 cases in the United Arab Emirates, host country of Expo 2020 Dubai, organizers of the exhibition say they are on course to finish strong come March, even as they keep a close watch on the situation. In this report, our correspondent, Maiwa Adegoke, visits the Expo site to see how activities are going on, as well as capture the thoughts of visitors.
Another day at the Expo 2020 Global Exhibition, which organizers say will carry on till its scheduled end in March, despite the increase in COVID cases on site and across the country. However, new protocols have been introduced as Omicron spreads. Vaccinated staff and volunteers at the Expo site will have to go through frequent testing.
So we have had a couple of pavilions that have closed for a short while. We've helped them with the sanitisation as quickly as possible before they could reopen. So that's something as well that we're trying to ensure that sanitisation, which we're doing all the time anyway, but particularly when there is a COVID case, that we really take a very quick action on that.
Visitors are also encouraged to play their part in keeping safe as they go about enjoying the activities on site. Daily parades and some other forms of entertainment, which were suspended late December, are now being reintroduced.
And it was really a precautionary measure that we looked at the different types of entertainment that we offer. So we have our daily parades. We also have what we call our roving entertainment, so different groups that go around and interact with people. And we scaled that back. For a while we stopped it completely, and then we've introduced some of it in small groups in different areas. And that was really just to, as I say, a precautionary measure to stop that happening. With all of our events and entertainment team, they are tested every 24 hours. So we are ensuring, and people are working and rehearsing in their bubbles so that, you know, if something happens, we can quickly isolate any cases.
Visitors from across the world have not been deterred as the exhibition has crossed its 10 million visits mark. Tourists and residents alike say they feel safe at the Expo.
All the people has their masks on, which is very, feels safe. Yeah, it feels safe. And I feel more comfortable. There's always distancing, social distancing, so it's actually really great, here.
I think it's super neat how they were still able to make this happen. The space that they have, how they're just able to say, oh, we have 9 million people, but yet there hasn't been anything massive, and I think the organization here has been really good too. Just how you have to be vaccinated or have a negative PCR to get in. I think they've really done a really good job about organizing this.
It was beautiful. I felt like I was in a fairy tale. We had yoga by the waterfall. It was just magical. The music was going. Her voice was soothing. We had an hour of yoga. It was incredible. You got it with the ticket. You just buy your Expo ticket and you can do it for free. It was fantastic. I've come here. This is my second time here. I really love the Expo. There's so much to see. I've been here twice. Like I said, haven't seen everything. There's fog rooms. There's delicious food, donuts with amazing things in them. I love it. There's something for everyone.
And so the show goes on. Today, Saudi Arabia, one of the most visited pavilions with over 2 million visits, celebrates its National Day. The pavilion leans heavily on technology to tell visitors about the country's rich heritage, eco-diversity, and bold ambitions. Already, it has won 3 Guinness Book of World Records. It's the first Expo where African nations have individual pavilions. Here, Chef Alexander Small's vision for an African dining hall has come to life.
Well, this unleashes the promise of all kinds of possibilities. We're going to take Al Kibulan around the world. And the other extraordinary coincidence that it would be here at Dubai 2020, Expo 2020, is that Al Kibulan is the first written name of Africa. I mean, the Europeans showed up and changed it to Africa, but the first written name of Africa is Al Kibulan. It's an Arab word, and here we are. We've come home, and they, in partnership, have helped us fuel this movement.
From all indications, Expo 2020 Dubai, which opened on October 1 after a 1-year delay caused by the pandemic,
is on track to run its full course till March 31st, 2022, a testament to the organizers' determination to show the world how to forge ahead in a responsible way.
Well, this is where we say goodbye till next time, but remember, our top stories are never far away. You can catch them on channelstv.com. Thank you so much for watching the program. I'm Teniola Shobowale. Bye for now.